Welcome to the 4th Annual Canadian Colors Kingston Foundation Diversity Dinner.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming here tonight on behalf of me and my family. It means so much to us that you took time out of your busy schedules to come and be here tonight.
My dear Mr. Shane, please let me explain. My dear Mr. Shane means you're right.
The Canadian Colors Kingston Foundation, whose goal is to create a community that understands, embraces, and respects everyone's cultural, religious, and/or ethnic beliefs, to ensure that these are passed on for generations to come.
Part of the reason we're here tonight is not only to recognize how lucky we are to be here and to have the opportunities we've been given, but to become bigger than the sum of our parts. It's not always about trying to change the world. Sometimes it's about listening and learning. It's about community. It's about building relationships. It's about having a conversation.
We have a vision. Part of that vision is about building a global city where we welcome you, no matter where you're from. And I think that it's important that as the mayor that I send that message tonight, because when you've come from a different culture, it's one thing if you came to Kingston decades ago, or your family came decades ago. But if you're relatively new to Kingston, there can be culture shock, and sometimes it can be difficult to fit in if you have a different language or a different culture and understanding the way that we do things here.
Canadians in general know very little about the colonial history of Canada and how we have captured the Indigenous people and put them aside and then took over their lands. The post-generational impacts of the residential schools, for instance, have been enormous. There were 150,000 children that were taken from their parents at the ages of 5 or 6 and placed into Indian residential schools where they were told that their culture and their parents and their families were savages and heathens, and we were going to bring you to a different way of life. And we can't leave it entirely to government to correct this problem. I think we all have to take our part in it. We all have to take a role.
I migrated from Pakistan 20 years ago and chose Kingston, my home, 15 years ago. The other 5 years I was just wandering around Canada where I need to be settled. Kingston was the most excited and appealing city to me to raise my family here. And in the beginning, I was very scared and nervous to be here because I was told by many colleagues or many friends who knows me well or knows the Canada very well, this city is dominated white city. And you will not be accepted there as a colored person. But I was brave because I will always believe myself and always believe in the system, in the society, and I always believe if you are open to the others, others will open their arms to welcome you. It's no doubt in my mind before and not as of today. So I took as a challenge to move here in Kingston, and by the grace of God, as of today, after 15 years, I am here in front of you, the 4th time hosting this dinner. The background of this dinner I want to really share with you is very important for you to understand. It's not a dinner. It was my way to say my gratitude to you, all of you, and everyone who's not here in entire Canada. Everyone who was here before me to help me to become who I am as of today. I was nobody 15 years ago. I was just an immigrant like every other immigrant came from away with nothing. But I was given the opportunity. I was given the privileges. But of course I have to work hard for it. And I did my part. And I became very successful. I'm feeling proud of myself being a Canadian always and as of today as well. And it's all become possible with your support, with your help. Because you set the way for me, you set the path for me to walk on. You accept me who I was, and you let me be how I want to be.
Tonight was really a culmination of a huge celebration that started a few years ago with the first dinner that Mr. Jimmy Hassan initiated, looking at celebrating diversity, something that Canada is renowned for around the entire planet, and also considering all the opportunities that he had been provided with, coming from a different part of the world. He came from Pakistan, going through his own struggles through that, and then coming here and seeing everything that was made available to him. It's been every day has been a celebration for him. So giving back to the community any which way that he can, and us being involved with him to do the same, was kind of where the motivation came from.
We've just heard about somebody who has come from another country and who feels very at home here, and who is able to express that love for his community through this incredible event. The thing that really makes me proud of our community is that people like you and all of the other individuals who come from other countries can feel at home here. My parents also came from other countries, and I've talked about that before, and I've talked about being raised in a family of immigrants. My father is Polish, my mother was Scottish. The cultures were perhaps not as different. They were used to speaking English when they came here, but not everybody is like that. People have great tasks in front of them when they leave their countries behind and when they adopt this country, excuse me, as their own.
When I look in this room, I see various different people that I know in various different capacities that I might otherwise think of you in isolation, but it is fascinating to see you all come together and to be part of one event that is being put on by Jimmy and Ian. And I think it truly speaks to Jimmy's ability and his desire to bring the community together. Jimmy has this idea that is so unbelievably Canadian. The idea that when you fight for something and you try hard and you achieve it, that's not the end. The end is then to pay it forward and to make the opportunities exist for others too, the opportunities that he had. And he talks about that, and I encourage you to read that in the program because it truly is inspiring. And I know, having known Jimmy for about 10, 12 years now, that's what motivates and drives him forward on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for coming together and bringing our differences together. Canada is a country that is built on our differences, and not because we think that when we come together we should become a melting pot, but instead, like the previous speaker said, a salad bowl, and that's the perfect way of describing it. We appreciate the fact that our differences make us stronger. They make us a better country, they make us a better people, they make us have the ability to be more tolerant, to be more appreciative, and to make genuine contribution to making a better quality of life for everybody.
Through this dinner, we can also promote that how important it is to know each other, to believe in each other's values and the religious beliefs, the political and social beliefs. How important it is to know each other well and celebrate together and come together with a common goal and common idea, and it is our collective duty to make sure the tomorrow's Canada is better, safer for our children.
What are the goals of the Canadian Colors Kingston Foundation? The first one, to build a community that sees themselves as proud Canadians while still keeping links with their heritage and roots to enrich Canada's diverse society. This goal can only be achieved if we get people to understand that anyone who was not born in Canada but came here from another country made a choice and chose Canada from the 193 independent countries of the world. We need to make sure that we are constantly working towards being proud Canadians and educating and sharing their heritage with others so the entire country can benefit from our background as much as we benefit from Canada's background. We need to ensure that our culture continues to be passed on from generation to generation, and that no matter how far removed we are from our historical home, we never lose sight of our own family's heritage Yet at the same time, we all need to start referring to ourselves as Canadians. The second goal, to highlight what true and meaningful diversity is within today's diverse Canadian society. Canadian Colours Kingston Foundation is looking to change the narrative of diversity. CCKF is not about everybody being the same. We encourage dialogue and sharing of opinions, and there's nothing wrong with having an opposing idea, as long as you are willing to agree to disagree on these issues. But at the end of the day, we need to respect each other and overcome these differences, because I am confident if you continue to communicate, you will find you have more in common than not.
If we take a look at what's gone on, not just here in North America, but over the world in the last few years, there's a lot of troublesome things that we're dealing with. And when we take a look at our up and coming generations, it's very important that we continue to push the message of unity, acceptance, tolerance, looking at all of our differences and celebrating them, rather than really pigeonholing ourselves within these differences. So if we, start to become complicit with that, thinking that, oh, we've already achieved it, it's good, Canada's already known for it, we can see, and we don't need to get into things, but we can see what's gone on in the world the last little while. That sentiment can dissipate very quickly. So we need to make sure that the message is consistent, it's there, and it's persistent, and it's readily available for all of us here today, and for our children, and what they plan to do in the future. Hugely important.
Community building starts with invitation, an invitation to gather, to get in contact, to meet each other, to meet in a spirit of friendship, and turn the contact into connections and connections into community. To me, community building is the most important work we will ever do in our lives. And that's what you're doing here tonight. This is a gathering, this is a voluntary association, a voluntary gathering of people in the spirit of friendship. That's different than government. It's different than business. Government is owned by the public and business is owned by individuals. Gatherings like this volunteer are owned by no one. Yet, they produce community, and community belongs to all of us. And we belong to community. And that community has to include every one of us if it's to be a healthy one. So your presence here tonight reminds me that we have the capacity in Kingston to build community and make Kingston a place that we can recommend to anyone with confidence.
I'm Canadian born and raised. My parents are from Pakistan, of Pakistani descent. And when in the 80s in Kingston, when I was the only colored Pakistani Muslim kid in school, there was a lot of things that I dealt with then that aren't so prevalent anymore, which is great for my children not to deal with some of that stuff. But it became hugely important through my father, who kept that sense of tying us back to our cultural heritage alive, to be proud of it, to celebrate it, even though I was the only guy in my school, and people are like, hey, your name's kind of funny, or hey, how come you don't celebrate Christmas the way we do? These types of conversations. And for my own parents, they didn't know how to handle that. They had never raised children in Canada before, so there was a lot of fear with them. But now, with our generation, with my children, I get to show them and talk to them about the things that I dealt with, and show them how none of that is that bad. And you have every opportunity to do everything you want to do here. You can celebrate Christmas. You can go to your friend's place and have a great Christmas dinner. They can come over and enjoy an Eid celebration with you. So, it's important for me to continue to foster that. I know what I went through, and it wasn't much, but that feeling of difference by a simple question, like, how come, you weren't celebrating Christmas with us, or wouldn't you come over? Simple question, people don't really think about it, but when you're the only kid and you go home and all a little kid wants to do is feel accepted, involved, engaged, have friends, these kinds of things. So I had all of that, I gained all that. Kingston's been a success spot for many of us, but I want to make sure that they understand where they come from and celebrate their Canadian identity at the same time. So it's important for me to stay involved forever.